Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Muhammad Nur Hakim Izzat bin Abdul Hisham, and I will explain to you about introduction. First thing first is land acquisition have long been a significant issue in Malaysia, playing a crucial role in the nation economic, social and also environmental landscape. The process of acquiring land involves various stakeholders, including the government, private entities, indigenous communities, and also individual landowners. The legal framework governing land acquisition in Sarawak is complex, involving various laws and regulations, including the Sarawak Land Code. However, concerns have been raised regarding transparency, accountability, and the proper recognition of indigenous land rights. Land acquisition in Sarawak presents complex challenges and implications for the environment, indigenous communities, and also sustainable development. Recognizing and respecting the right of indigenous community, promoting transparency and accountability in land governance, and also adopting sustainable land use practice are essential steps towards achieving a more balanced and inclusive approach to land acquisition.
For acquisition proceeding of alienated land, there are 6 steps. First is survey. Survey and acquisition of land will only begin if a declaration is posted under section 47, and it will be final and conclusive of the land to be resumed. Any damage experienced or as a result of the proceeding survey operation will be paid by the superintendent. However, such compensation will not be payable in relation to any land written under Section 48. Such a finding is only unsustainable because the eventual compensation payable is all inclusive because it relates to the reclaimed land. Second is inquiry. Section 49 of the Land Code require the acquiring authority to post notice in convenient location on or near the land to be taken, notifying all persons interested to appear personally or through an agent before the superintendent at a time and place specified in the notice. Such time not being early than 21st days after the date of posting. On the day of the investigation, the superintendent shall acquire the following, which is objection to the measurement as surveyor, if any. Second, respective interest of the person claiming and the value of the land. Third is payment compensation. The superintendent is expected to pay the compensation to the person interested after making a written award, and in the event of non-payment owing to rejection or the absence of a competent person to accept it, the case must be placed in the High Court. Next is possession. The acquiring authority may take possession of the land only after the issuance of an award under Section 51 at the end of an official inquiry according to Section 53. Nonetheless, if possession was obtained prior to the completion of compensation payment, 4% per year interest will be charged to the compensation until the time of complete payment. Next is adjustment of compensation. If the difference between the actual area surveyed and the area found by the superintendent in the inquiry exceed or fall short of 1%, the difference will be valued at the same rate as in the final award plus 6% per annum interest from the date of possession or compensation paid until payment for the difference is made or refunded. An important aspect to note here is that the above mentioned interest is imposed not only on the purchasing authority but also on the person interested. Furthermore, the interest rate is sustainably higher than the typical rate of 4% each year. And the last is time taken. According to Land and Survey Department records, over 75% of land resumption processes are completed within a year following the date of posting under Section 47, and it is assumed that the majority of these resumption have never progressed beyond the Section 47 stage.
Accusation proceeding of native customary right. So, in Sarawak, Malaysia, the accusation proceeding of native customary right governed by the Sarawak Land Code. This law provides guidelines and procedure for acquiring land, including native customary right. So, I will provide you with an overview of the accusation proceedings along with relevant section from the respective law and additional details. So before that, I will explain a little bit Sarawak Land Code. Sarawak Land Code deals with the right and interest in land, including native customary right. In Section 5 of Sarawak Land Code, recognize the existing and validity of native customary right over land. So next, I will explain the breakdown of the accusations of proceedings under Sarawak Land Code. So firstly is notice of intention to acquire. So when the government intend to acquire the land, including land with the native customary right, they must issue a notice of intentions to acquire. This notice is served to the landowner or the occupier of the land, and it outlines the purpose of acquisitions, description of the lands, and the compensation to be paid. So this related to in Section 29 of the Sarawak Land Code provide the legal basis of issuing this notice. So the next process is objection and inquiry. So upon receiving the notice of intention to acquire, affected landowner or the occupier, including those with native customary rights, have the right to object to the acquisitions. So in Section 32 of the Sarawak Land Code allows the landowner or occupier to submit their objection within a specific period. An inquiry may be conducted by the land administrator to assess the objection and gather relevant information. So the next process is determining of the compensations. Right after the inquiry, the land administrator will determine the compensation payable to the landowner or occupier, including those with native customary right. The compensation should be fair and just, taking into account variables such as the land market value, potential use, and any improvement made by the landowner. So section that related to this part is Section 38 of Sarawak Land Code. That section will explain the outline, the principle for determining compensations. For the last part of the process is the appeal. If the landowner or the government are dissatisfied with the land administrator decisions on compensations to be paid, they can file an appeal to the High Court. So section that related to Section 39 is related to this part. Section 39 of the Sarawak Land Code provide the mechanism for the appealing decisions. So that's all from me. My other friends will explain other part. Thank you for listening.
So for the compulsory land acquisition in Sabah, Sabah had witnessed various government-led development initiatives such as the construction of dams, highways, and agricultural plantation. This project aimed to stimulate economic growth, enhance connectivity, and also improve public services. However, they often require the acquisition of land from local communities, leading to socio-economic disruption, cultural displacement, and also environmental degradation. So Sabah also is renowned for its unique biodiversity, including vast rainforests and critical habitats for numerous endangered species. Compulsory land acquisition for agriculture, logging, and infrastructure projects often lead to deforestation, habitat destruction, and also, last but not least, ecosystem fragmentation.
The acquisition procedure, we have a few of acquisition procedure, which is first, publication of declaration. In Sabah, the Land Acquisition Act governs the process of acquiring land. The Act requires the acquiring authority to publish a declaration stating its intention to acquire a specific land for a public purpose. This declaration must be published in two local newspaper and displayed on public notice board in the area where the land is located. This ensures that affected landowner and interested parties are informed and have the opportunity to voice objection or claims regarding the land. Transparency and notification are prioritized to protect everyone's right. So for the next procedure, which is preliminary notice and power of entry. The Land Acquisition Act governs the preliminary notice and power of entry. According to Section 5 of the Act, the acquiring authority must issue a preliminary notice to the affected landowners and occupant. This notice grants the authority the legal right to enter the land for survey and inspection related to the acquisition. It ensures that the authority can gather accurate information, assess suitability, and make informed decision. This provision in the Act protect the right of all parties involved and facilitate a smooth land acquisition process. So for the next procedure, which is power to carry out works on land without waiting for formal wasting. The Land Acquisition Act allows the acquiring authority to carry out work on the land before formal wasting. Section 8 of the Act grants the authority the power to initiate essential activities related to the intended public purpose without delay. This includes construction or development work. The acquiring authority can process the land and begin work, provide fair compensation is paid to the affected landowners and occupant. This provision ensures an efficient acquisition process while protecting the right and interests of those affected. So for the next procedure, which is authority to negotiate, the Land Acquisition Act grants the acquiring authority the power to negotiate for land acquisition. Section 9 of the Act enables discussion and consultation with affected landowners and occupants to determine the terms and compensation. This provision promotes fairness and considers the concern of all parties involved. The Act emphasizes negotiation as a means to achieve consensus and a mutually satisfactory agreement. By providing this authority, the Act ensures that the land acquisition process in Sabah respects the right and interests of all parties. For the next procedure, which is issue of notice of acquisition, the issuance of notice of acquisition is a curious step governed by the Land Acquisition Act. Under Section 7 of the Act, the acquiring authority is required to provide a formal notice to the affected landowners and occupants. This notice communicates the government's intention to acquire the land for a public purpose and includes details such as land description, purpose of acquisition, possession date, and compensation. The notice of acquisition serves as legal documentation initiating the valuation and compensation determination process. By adhering to this requirement, the Land Acquisition Act ensures transparency, fairness, and due process land acquisition process in Sabah. So for the last procedure, which is right of person interested to have land acquired abandoned. The Land Acquisition Act protects the right of a person interested in the land to request its abandonment. Section 14(1) of the Act grants individuals the opportunity to apply to the acquiring authority for the abandonment of the acquisition. This provision acknowledges that circumstances may change and individuals may have valid reasons for halting the acquisition process. It ensures that affected parties have a voice and the opportunity to present their case for abandonment. The Land Acquisition Act safeguards the right of those interested in the land by providing the mechanism for requesting abandonment based on valid reason. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Hai, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ahmad Faiz Hidai bin Ahmad Zaki. So I'm going to present about my part 3.2 procedure of assessment of compensation. So for the firstly, we look for the open market value. So the following rule that shall apply subject to the restriction of this ordinance is to the evaluation and award of compensation by a judge for the forcible acquisition of land. For example, the value of the land should be taken to be the amount that the land in its condition at the time of acquisition, it could have been expected to recoup if sold in the open market by a willing seller at a date 12-month period to the date of the second publication. So, however, provided this rule should not affect the assessment of compensation for damage sustained by the person interested as a result of severance or as a result of the acquisition injuriously affecting. So secondly, we look for the special suitability. So in this case, the exceptional suitability or adaptability of the land for any purpose shall not be taken into consideration if the purpose is a purpose to which the land could be applied only in pursuant or statutory powers that have not already been granted, or it is also which there is no market other than the specific needed. So the thirdly, we go to the illegal user. In this point, instead in which the value of the property has grown as a result of the usage of the land or of other factor, any premise that in a way that is forbidden to law might be prohibited by any court, or it is injurious to the health of the occupant of the facility. So the amount of the increase must be not be taken into the consideration if it poses a threat to the premise or to public health. So next we look to the reinstatement. So in this case, where land is being devoted to a purpose that, but for the compulsory acquisition would continue to be devoted to a purpose of such a nature that is no general demand or market for land for that purpose. So the compensation may, if the judge specified that the instatement in some other place in bona fide intended be assessed on the basis of the reasonable cost. So next we go to the matters to disregarded. So it is not permissible to take into account the fact that the acquisition was required. So the degree of immediacy or necessity that lead to the acquisition or any other similar factor, the unwillingness of the person interested to relinquish the land acquired for any damage sustained by the person interested that is caused by a private person. So, however, that nothing herein shall prejudice any claim under this ordinance for damage subsequently sustained as a result of the use to which the land acquired is paid, any increase to the value of the land. So for the lastly, we go to the disturbance. So several payment may be contingent on the construction, provision or authorization of certain work, closing or access as agreed to by the Yang di-Pertuan Negeri. Such as agreement must be reduced to writing, signed by the judge to valid, effective and binding on the parties, so that the Yang di-Pertuan Negeri may at any time before the judge has made his award, order the acquisition of the whole or any additional portion of the land of which the land first sought to be acquired from apart, if he is of the opinion that any claim by a person interested on account of the surveying of the land, that the land that to be acquired from his other land is unreasonable or excessive. Such additional land shall vest absolutely in the government on the date of the order of the Yang Tuan Negeri, and no further declaration of other proceeding under Section 3 to 7 both inclusive shall be required. That's all.
So for the conclusion, I have divided by 3 points that are very crucial in this conclusion. So for the conclusion, land acquisition 4.1, land acquisition in Malaysia represent a complex and multifaceted issue with significant implication for various stakeholders and the overall development of the nation. The historical context of land ownership and the introduction of private land tenure during the colonial era have influenced the dynamic of land acquisition in the country. So for the second point, land acquisition in Malaysia are driven by various factors including economic development, urbanization, infrastructure project and industrial expansion. And last but not least, moving forward, we know that Malaysia need to strike a balance between economic development and preservation of environmental integrity, cultural heritage and also social well-being by implementing policies that prioritize sustainable land management, protection of indigenous rights and responsible investment practices. Malaysia can ensure that land acquisition contribute to the long-term prosperity and well-being of its people while safeguarding the nation's natural resources for future generations.